Thank you so much, Sara Sugarman, for joining me. I'm very excited to chat with
Pleasure.
you even more. So you're saying earlier you came back to the UK at the end of 2019, and then you got this film deal with Sky. Came onto this film, which you shot during, well, presumably during lockdown. So how did you get involved in that project? And I know you very recently wrapped. So are you kind of in the downtime now, or are you straight into
Edit,
the post? Yeah.
editing. Yeah, straight into post. Andrea Arnold, who I met on a kind of postgrad thing from Bournemouth.
All
Like
right.
they used to do this postgraduate film that didn't go in the end, but I worked with her. She'd written the script. It was before she was Andrea Arnold. We'd all applied for this postgrad 1 year where you get to make a feature, low budget feature. But in the end, the guy that gave the money decided not to, so it all fell apart. But I was going to direct, which is ironic, Andrea's movie that she'd written a script. Anyway, cut a long story short, that's when I met her years ago in the 90s. And then she was given this script, right, sent to her because obviously she's done really well. And it was a Welsh script. Ooh, what have I done here? It was a
Ooh.
Welsh script, and it was kind of obviously to me written by an Englishman, like a posh Englishman. You could tell it wasn't really Welsh. But when she read it, she said she thought to herself, "This is Sara Sugarman's film. This ain't my type of thing." So she told me about it, and
Wow.
she sent it me, and I was like, "I so could make this work. This is so my ballpark." Even though it was written by someone pretending to be Welsh because I'm Welsh, I just know I can make this work because it was warm-hearted, an old Ealing comedy type feel, Bolting Brothers, old-fashioned type of British film. So I got a little bit of a funny anecdote about it actually, is I found like on it, it said who the producers were. So I looked on IMDb and I chased, there was a phone number for the main producer. So I rang him and I told him, which is the truth, that I know all the Welsh in Hollywood and I can ask Catherine Zeta-Jones if she wants to be attached. And he was like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. I said, I'd read your script and I really would love to reach out to her with it. Anyway, cut a long story short, I'd rang the wrong bloke and he just left Staffordshire Film College and he'd only done 2 short horror films. And I was like chasing him, ringing him up saying, I can get you Catherine Zeta-Jones for your horror film, your next short horror film. Anyway, I stayed in touch with him and he's a lovely lad. And it was a different guy. But by the time I got a hold of the real producer just by ringing around, doing the old Bournemouth hustle. And he eventually rang me back, this producer, and he said, I hear you're interested in the film. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, why would I want you? And I said, you've got to have me. I'm Welsh, I'm this, I'm that. I know this one, that one, this one, that one. And I know everyone that can give money to foreign like foreign sales. How much is this star worth? How much? And I know all the Welsh guys. So he said, okay, well, if you can get me the Welsh actors, you can do the job, you can direct. So I just acted as if I rang all my friends, I sent them the script, and every single one of them said no. They weren't interested. But by the time they'd said no, he liked me anyway. So he kept me on. And yeah, that's it. So I got the gig and we just, I mean, it's funny directing because even when you work for a studio, you never really know if it's going to get greenlit, you never know and in a way, I'd love to tell you all that because you can waste a lot of time as a director attaching yourself to things that never get made because you believed what they said to you. So these guys told me it was with Sky, it was this budget, it was that. Anyway, half of it was kind of had legs on it. Do you know what I mean? They built some legs on it. But the truth is, amazing. They got it made. And it was hard going in COVID. We didn't have the extras. Like it was one scene was meant to be 200 people in a cinema, and we were given 20 people and
Wow.
40 dummies. And that was it, So,
I think I
and
saw
they
a
were all
picture of
meant
that
to
on
stand
your
up and applaud. So
Instagram.
that was really
Yeah.
hard. And you can see on the streets, no, it definitely didn't have crowds in it, which is a shame for me. But at the same time, it was like I got to make a movie in COVID, so I'm thrilled.
Yeah, who else can say that?
I know, I'm very
It's a
lucky.
very small pool of people. And what's that about? It's called Save the Cinema.
It's called Save the Cinema, and it's very low. I can hardly hear you. I can hear you, Lewis, but I'm doing a bit of lip reading just to let you know. It's
Okay.
called Save the Cinema, and it's a true story about a woman in South Wales, in West Wales, Southwest Wales, who was given an old cinema um, because she loved kids, and she had like a little theatre company, and they put on shows at the old cinema, and a lot of good people came out of that company. She was obsessed, this woman. Anyway, in the end, she wrote to Steven Spielberg because the council were going to knock it down, and she hassled Steven Spielberg to give her a print of his own personal print of Jurassic Park, on the same day, because in those days, it wasn't digital. You had to have a print, and
Mm.
and so it went on one cinema in London, then it would go around London, then it would go around. But she managed to get it on the same day as the premiere in the Empire Leicester Square. And then, typical, her name was Liz Evans. She put the clocks back, so she actually had the British premiere of Jurassic Park in a tiny little cinema in Carmarthen, and because she did that, she did save this cinema, and it's still there, thriving to this day.
Wow. What an amazing story.
It's a cute story,
Yeah.
It's like a proper, like, it's about how, you must put people's kind of the arts and people's education and nourishment before making money. That's
Yeah.
all. It's the same old story that we'd be telling today in a way, it's the same theme. That but it's all set in 1993, which was also kind of interesting in COVID, to try and get costumes from 1993 actually turned out to be really hard, because you couldn't go to vintage shops and stuff. Nothing was open.
True. Yeah. And when can we expect to see that? Is that kind of the end of this year, or?
Yeah, I'd say it's Christmas this year. I'd say it was Christmas this year. I want it to be called Dear Mr. Spielberg myself, because I think it's weird to call it Save the Cinema, because it implies that it's all about the love of cinema and the history of cinema. But the truth is, it's just about an old cinema that was used as a theatre. So I think it's confusing. Whereas if it's called Dear Mr. Spielberg, it's about cinema, but at the same time, it's about saving these kids and their education. I think it's better to call it that. I'm going to fight for that. So we'll see if I win, Lewis.
Yeah, we definitely will. And I mean, it can't hurt to have a Spielberg's name in the title of the film.
I know, that's true. We had to have his okay. He read the script and he likes it, so that's nice.
Oh, great. Oh, amazing. So maybe he would be okay with calling it that then.
Maybe
little executive producer credit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nice. Well, he's meant to appear in it, although they seem to have cut the scene. It's just a one-sided phone call. But if we do get him to be in it, he could obviously be second unit director.
That'd be amazing. I'm sure he'd love that credit.
I don't think it's going to happen, Lewis.
We can cross everything. And I guess going back then, so that's the most recent, but going back to the start of your career, so you came to Bournemouth. What made you want to, I guess, leave Wales and come and study film in Bournemouth to start with?
No, I didn't actually, Lewis. I'd left home at 14 to be an actress. And before anyone listening to this was even thought about being born, probably when their parents were children, I was an actress. I left Wales when I was 14 and came on my own to London, because that was like in the late 70s, and you could do that. It was just benign neglect from your parents, who were mostly all given Valium from the National Health Service. Everyone was on Valium. And I just remember saying to my mum, I want to go to London and be an actress. And she went, ask your dad. And my dad was just busy trying to make a living. He went, ask your mum. So I just went. I said, oh, she said, yeah, it's fine. And I went to London and I got into this stage school who put me up for an audition for Grange Hill. And I started my career in Grange Hill, and did my I loved acting. And for many, many years, I was an actress that was always like, you know, early 80s and kind of punk rock was in, and I worked with Alex Cox, and I was like the BBC punk rocker. And then I graduated to actually be an actress on the BBC. And I worked a lot actually as a young person. And then I went to RADA, and because I wanted to be, I had this notion that I was going to be a classical actress. I hated RADA with a passion, Lewis. It was everything I hate. It's like if you put Shane McGowan in RADA, that's how it felt for me. Like Shane McGowan from the Pogues. I was like, I hate this place. I hate everything about it. And it put me off acting for life. And that's when I found Bournemouth, because I left RADA, and they actually gave me their medal. And I absolutely hated the place. And I did a student film for Bournemouth, and I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. Like all these people that get to be creative together, and they were so good looking. The thing that I really noticed above everything else was everyone was very good looking. And I thought, I want a bit of this. So I went to Bournemouth Film School, and I was just there for a year for the HND course, and it was the best year I've ever had. I had a lovely time. I loved it so much. So yeah, that's how I got to Bournemouth.
And while you were so when you left Bournemouth, then what was your calling card? What did you know you wanted to direct and write at that point?
Yeah, I knew when I went to Bournemouth, because it was the HND course, and I'd spent by then about, how old? I mean, I was quite old when I went to Bournemouth. I think I was 29 or 30. And I'd like been an actor. Left home at 14. I've been an actor since, you know, and I didn't stop acting. I never was sitting down twiddling my thumbs. So I went, and I wanted to write and direct, but I didn't know what at all, you know. And I was never kind of, what I loved about Bournemouth, it was an emotional school. Like when Neil Grant ran it, this guy called Neil Grant, when he ran it, he was like a Nazi. You couldn't believe it was your own money, because they wouldn't green light it unless they liked it. And what they always liked was stories that were from the heart, not from the head, not clever, but warm. And that suited me so well. I'd been acting on a project I'd won this competition at BBC Wales for this thing I'd written. But the thing was, I was always kind of spewing out writing, but I didn't have a writing tradition. I didn't know who I was as a writer. And all I had was a lot of pent up emotion. And I just wanted to go bleh with words. And coming to Bournemouth, what it did for me, although as a young person, I managed to get like this BBC job and blah, 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 which is amazing. For the most part, my writing was kind of without any shape, and I didn't understand story structure. And Neil Grant, the fascist, with a big emotional, warm, liberal heart, taught us all about a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you could not get your thing made, even though it was your own money. You couldn't get your graduation film made if it didn't have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that was the best gift that anyone gave me, because it allowed that it was like learning chords, you know, on a guitar or something. He gave you chords and once you learn the chords, you can play whatever you want. So that's what Bournemouth gave me. And my graduation film, I was making this little film in Wales, and I kind of went to South Wales because I'm from North Wales. And I was like really, really shocked at how our Welsh culture had been ripped from us and replaced with cappuccinos, you know, like this whole kind of like coffee bars and like, oh wow. And I wanted to talk about like the Welsh logic, which is kind of like Celtic logic, like Irish. So it was like going to Dublin and finding that it all become homogenized by what they think is sophistication, to the detriment of what you might call folk culture about the people. Yeah. So I wanted to write about that, and I found that my natural way of expressing that was through quirky comedy. So I made my own little quirky comedy about a woman, about a bunch of kind of travelers that came to Wales, and were selling pots and pans and this and that, whatever they could, but also selling sex. And it was about a young lad whose dad went to the caravan. He's trying to lose his virginity, but his dad went to the caravan, and the young boy witnesses his dad and thinks it's for the wrong reasons, but it ends up he was buying his mother a blender for her birthday. And so I don't know where it came out from, but the big deal for me was the fact that Neil made us learn dramatic tension. You know, what is a story? And that just changed my life, Lewis, knowing that, you know. It's not easy to write well, I don't think. It's
No.
like not easy to write from a deep place where you really have that kind of dramatic argument that's from an emotional space inside yourself. And that's what he gave me, and that's what changed my life around that 1 year.
That's
So
incredible.
when I
to get
left,
so much.
sorry, I don't even, what, Lewis?
I said that's incredible to get so much out of a concentrated space of time.
So much. I got so much. And what he taught me, I then, like, I've got quite an erratic brain, an untrained brain. So, and I also probably, if you wanted to diagnose me, I've probably got all sorts, you know, ADHD and all that. But like before, I was just a punk rocker, really, left school young. And but what I found is that those external courses have helped me immensely and continue to do so. So I don't think there's anything wrong with getting your structure from the outside. And like, you know, all these how-to books, how to write a screenplay, I found them so helpful. And I actually went on, I can't believe this, but I went on to win Sundance as a screenwriter for my first feature film out of Bournemouth. I started writing it when I was in Bournemouth because they always used to say, write your short, have your graduation film, but have a script under your arm for your feature. So you can say it's in the same ballpark as the film you've liked. And this is it. It's my first feature. And that first feature won the International Filmmakers Prize at Sundance. It was like 5,000 people. And I did that with a how-to course. It was the John Truby How to Write a Screenplay, John Truby. And he's still going. And I really, really love him because it ended up that I won Sundance because of it. Not because of, I mean, it was like a blend between I found this Welsh village when I was making my student film, my graduation film, and I went back to that Welsh village, and I worked with the villagers and invented a story from an anecdote from the village, and what I'd learned from Neil Grant about story structure, and then with Truby, John Truby, this course or book you can now buy, I wrote this screenplay, and I started to understand that I can talk in a language now because of Bournemouth about developing scripts. You know, you can't, I don't think you can get away with it. It's like, learn the rules, then break them, you know? And so unless you're a genius, because I'm not one. I thought I was.
And then, so what do you think? And was that Sundance prize I guess, your breakout moment then in your mind? And
yeah, it really did change things for me. It meant like that people, like, you know, there's a lot of people, it's a business, it's called the industry, you know, so there's a lot of people in this business that don't really respond to material. They can, and it does happen, and often it's the two collide, but sometimes, especially when you're new, people don't understand. When they read a script, they don't bloody know. So if you get an award at a film festival, especially if it's one of the heavyweight film festivals, Sundance, you know, Venice, Toronto, Cannes, then you're London, you're made, really. It's like a platform where you get a gold star, and it opened doors for me. But in all fairness, Andrea Calderwood, who was running BBC Scotland at the time, commissioned me. And I was getting from that little film, I was getting a little platform from the BFI and things, which, you know, previous to me going to Bournemouth, I would apply to BFI with my bleh self-expression, and I never got anywhere. But it doesn't mean that they're right. BFI, again, are a business, you know, they're a government business, but they're a business. And everyone wakes up when you get a big award. So it's good to put in for those things, you know, it's good to throw your hat in at all these competitions, because the people that are employed by the government for that funding and things, they get to know your name and things, and they get to sort the wheat from the chaff, the ones that are really obsessed with it, and the ones that stick around it. So eventually they start reading your scripts and taking you seriously. And somewhere in there, you hope to win a good award at a good festival, you know?
Yeah. And so what year are we up to now then with Sundance? That was 90.
That was like
99?
1999.
Yeah.
So the film came out in 2000, and it cost Lewis. I wrote this thing from inside me. It's like the first album if you're a rock and roller. It was like my first album.
Yeah.
And it meant so much to me. And this is what I want to pass on to everybody else is like, I think that, you know, if you look at the career of people that have a strong voice of their own, like Andrea Arnold, you know, she didn't start doing other people's scripts till she was really established herself. And, you know, the thing is, I just wanted to do Free Willy 5. I remember actually this posh agent took me on, and who had Anthony Minghella, not the agency, the actual agent of Anthony Minghella and Dennis Potter and Harold Pinter, all these amazing writers. And she actually took me on for my student film because she liked it. And I remember saying to her, all I want to do is go to Hollywood and do like anything they throw at me. You know, I just want to work in Hollywood and get it made. I don't care if it's, you know, I would love Beverly Hill Chihuahua 9. I don't, you know, for me, that was straight to video. I'm in. I just wanted to go to America and be a film, like in film in Hollywood. And if that's a cautionary tale for anybody, I'd say stick to your own principles, stay home, don't want to bite the carrot, you know, the crock of gold is you. And if they give you a little award now, stay with it and just keep developing your own voice, you know. Go for the long game, not the short game. I'm cheap as a bag of chips. I'm like, I've enjoyed every minute, you know, but I would say that you're probably best, because when they start throwing scripts at you and they want you to do it, you get flattered. Like, what, someone wants to pay you money and give you a script. But if you can, stick to your own guns, you know, and try and do your own work.
Yeah.
Unless you're a craftsman, I'm not a technician. I think as a director, if I'm talking to directors, I'd say, you know, if you're a real craftsman, just choose very well the content. Don't get carried away with the adrenaline and excitement, which I'm your cautionary tale. Don't do it.
And I guess now crossing into the noughties, and I guess that does bring up Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. And so was that one of the, well, that was your first, I guess that was the big.
Yeah,
I mean, it's Disney, isn't it?
I went over to America, and in Wales there was BBC Wales actually did a documentary, a half-hour documentary on me, just because I bought a one-way ticket to America. That's it. I didn't have any job or anything. And I bought a ticket to Los Angeles, and I knew I wanted to go. And Catherine Zeta-Jones had seen my little Bournemouth Film School film and loved it because it reminded her of home. And so she commissioned me to write a feature film for her. And I stayed with her in her house. I stayed at Catherine's with her two brothers. I stayed there for a year,
Wow.
and I wrote the script. But then, because of her and who she was, her agency didn't want her to go to Wales and do a little small film. So that never happened. But it kind of gave me the bug. And I went over to live in LA, and she got me this visa. And then I sold my house, and I bought a house in LA. I sold my house. I'm missing telling you this, but when I was an actress, I managed to earn enough money to put a deposit on a house. And then I actually ended up, when I left Bournemouth, one of the jobs again for my little short was that Jude Law and Ewan McGregor had a company called Natural Nylon, and they commissioned me to write a script for Jude Law, and they gave me enough money to buy a house. So I just
Wow.
paid off my mortgage. I couldn't believe it.
That's incredible.
I couldn't believe it, man. So like, that's again because Neil Grant taught me beginning, middle, and an end, and they just chucked this load of cash. So that was me. I just like, I sold out very quickly. So I went in the noughties. I sold that house. I went to live in America. I bought a house in America, and it all the cards fell. I couldn't get into the industry at all over there. It's so competitive, and it's so like no one really knows. It's like panhandling. It's like the gold rush. People turn up and you don't know where the gold is, and no one knows if you've got the gold or the next person. And so it's a real democracy, because you don't have to have a training at all or know anything about it to call yourself a filmmaker there. So I was sitting there like, and really it was hard to get in, even though I'd won Sundance a few years earlier. It was still hard. And I just kind of had to take a job answering phones for a flat rental company, an apartment rental company, at $10 an hour. And that's where I was. I'd been on television. I'd left home young. I'd been like established actress, one Rod, one Sundance, and I was having to answer phones for $10 an hour. And when I look back at that, what happened is I was so desperate and so upset that when I got an interview for this film at Disney, I was like, I'm going to get this. I don't care who I have to kill. I'm getting out of selling flats, like renting flat rentals, answering phones for $10 an hour. I'm going to get this job. And it gave me so much fuel that I actually got that job. There was 15 people up for that job, and I got it. And it was because I was so frustrated having to answer phones for $10 an hour. So in a way, those times of pressure and hardship where you feel like shit, like they give you the fuel as well, to keep going. It's like, I'm not going to put up with this shit. And they give you a bit of an engine.
Yeah.
So I did that for Disney. Yeah. Then I realized, Lewis, that if you do go to America, it's a real sales game. And I couldn't speak the language over there. And in a way, it was that Neil Grant's, is about, like, you do push yourself in this industry. From Bournemouth, they teach you that, but they don't teach you, or they didn't in my day, how to pitch for yourself as a director or or a writer. And I think that you should learn that. Everyone should learn how to pitch as if they're in Hollywood, because again, it's all BS, but it's a skill that it doesn't mean you're a good writer. It doesn't mean you're a good director. But if you can pitch and sell it, your idea, it's a very narrow way to do it. And I didn't have it at the time. So I couldn't follow through after Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. And I was certainly in the rooms of things that I could. And so what I did is, when I realized that, I was living my life, so that's just how it goes. But I thought, well, do you know what? Things are promised to get made and this and that. I'm going to go to the American Film Institute and I might as well be there and do an MA on screenwriting as hang about here trying to, what does it matter? So I went to the AFI, and I would go to the directing class. You could sit in and monitor them, and I learned how to pitch. And if I'd have had that skill early on, I could have built on working for Disney. But I honestly didn't know how to pitch. So once I didn't have to do that job for $10 an hour, I was kind of lost. I got this Disney job because I would have killed my grandma. And then after that, I wouldn't have killed my grandma for anything, but I didn't have the skill. And going to AFI, they did teach you how to pitch. So,
and how would you, or what pointers would you give to people then for pitching?
Do everything visual. Go and get a little like a presentation. You might be doing this already, but get a presentation together and look at, like, kind of in your presentation, get a load of good images from the internet about what the look is, and reference films that are similar to what you want, so that there's a lot of visuals for people to look at, the money people to look at, and then talk about each page, like methodically, like how you're going to light it, how you're going to shoot it, how, so to know that before, even if you don't really shoot it like that, they like to know, to think, that you're going to do it like that. And that's what I didn't know. I used to say, well, we'll grow it, or be the chemistry between us all. And they'd kick me out the door. So like, what you kind of make a presentation, what camera you're going to use, what lenses you're going to use, what type of lighting you're going to use on a different page. And then obviously throughout this, all the images, and then reference films that are like your film. And then, obviously the casting ideas, and tonally, the tone of the film, and just be able to articulate that with a lot of images. And I found writing it out, I never lost a job in Hollywood after that, but unfortunately there were jobs that never went. But so it's just, I would say, go in guns blazing. Do you do that? I should imagine you do. If you're online fundraising, you have to do a bit of that already.
Yeah, you have to sell your project, and part of that is having the visuals behind it. And I think usually by the time we get to that stage, this is for BA film, you've already got those HODs who have had those conversations with each other, and can each bring their own everything to the table, and that includes bringing the costume and makeup courses as well, who collaborate on the grad films. So you've got even costume designs and concept art.
Sorry, Lewis, as a director, you have to be all those people and put something together as if you are. So even if you're bullshitting for now about what the makeup's going to look like, what the hair, that's what I did wrong. It's like, I didn't know I was responsible to sell all of it. So when I'm a director, if I'm on someone else, I read a script and I'm pitching for it, I have to act like I'm the entire unit, that I'm every HOD, and that I give exactly that. So you just act as if you're the HOD for every department and hit them with it.
And I guess even more than, or in addition to visually as well, when you say about other films that may be similar or drawing inspiration from, for those, I guess, studio heads as well, as from a business perspective, what films are successful that they could almost like relate to and say, oh, we could have our own version of this or this or that on our hands. So for them, they're kind of seeing that you're referencing the right projects for them to be, we can make profit on this.
That's all they care about. And what I've found in my lifetime is that Britain has become more like America, and that they sell in that very wrapped up formula, and that it's very narrow, really. but if you don't, so is screenwriting in a way. It's like portrait painting. It's like, this is what it is, stick to it. And then once you can stick to it, you can get, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the rules. There's really nothing wrong with the rules. And there's a lot of ways to get to dramatic tension. You don't have to be so formulaic that you see it, but you do need a story to develop and grow, and they need something to sell. So yeah, definitely that they need a product. It's an industry, unless you're going to do art films, which are fantastic, and be a fine artist with this. And that's a noble thing as well, because what I found, I've got friends that are artists and they're not very good with the skills, the technical skills of filmmaking. But this is what they call, this narrative filmmaking that we learn at Bournemouth is what they call closed end filmmaking. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's, even if the end is ambiguous, it still has an end. It's not fine art, it's collaborative art and narrative. And I think it's really is like portrait painting. It's quite, you have to make it look like a face. What emotion you bring to it and what you express within it is infinite. But you still have to know that you got to make it look like a face. It doesn't have to, it can be expressive like a face, but Picasso still drew a face. He's just a master.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a couple of questions about Teenage Drama Queen here. So they said, was it almost trial by fire in going into that Hollywood system all of a sudden on a project like that? Or were you able to translate your skills, I suppose, that you already had quite well?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually do less, really, in a way. It was like going over there. It was bizarre, Lewis. Like, everyone who goes to Bournemouth knows what it's like. We all hustle and when you go and you're in a studio at Disney and you're in Mickey Mouse Boulevard and Goofy Drive and you can't believe you're there, and you're privileged to be there because 4 films come out of Disney main studio a year, maybe, I don't know how many, but not many. It was like a gold job. And I would go like this and everyone go, that's great. It was like, it was so weird. It's like, you're privileged. It was like being the queen or the king or something. It's like, you just don't understand why you're in this position, and I didn't, you can't go, you have to go in there to serve their project. You've got a lot of responsibility. And a lot of it was like being a stage manager and serve the writer, serve the project, try and find out, because they've got their big budget and they've got their studio reputation, and you're there to continue product for them and to give them a product that is their trademark. So that is a big responsibility on your shoulder. And I found that listening to that was the best way through it. Not try and be so quirky and different and me. Or I found that all they wanted was a bit of salt and pepper. Again, it's like they didn't want me to take over Disney. They just wanted me to collaborate and know what I was doing and steer the ship. So I was on their galleon and I had to steer it. And I could like say, well, I want it technical. I wanted things that made me tick. I knew I liked it colorful. I wanted to bring a bit of Britness into it, but I could only bring kind of myself into it, so it's political is the answer. And whoever asked the question, the truth is I was okay at it. I managed it well. I thought I was okay. I found I'm all right at it, but it was odd inside. And that's why I don't think anyone should think that course you get money, which means you get, you know, roof over your head and stuff, but you also get a lot of outgoings and people you don't really want to deal with. So if you can stick to making films for threatums and tell your own stories, it's far better, I think. It's more fun, you know. It is more fun, honestly, it is. It's like, but if you can be you for as long as you can, it's like one of those games at Christmas where, you know, I don't know if they still have Kaplunk, but it's kind of trying to find the balance before all the marbles fall, you know. So it's like, if you can stick at your own thing long enough, then you've got more power when they come for you. But if you go too early when they don't know, like if Andrea Arnold does one of theirs, she's still Andrea Arnold, you know. Whereas if you're Andrea Arnold, but you kind of took the big bucks before you did a few of your own, they don't know you're Andrea Arnold, and they'll tread on you a bit, you know. But I managed it okay. I did.
And there's another question here about, of course, work on there. You work with Megan Fox and Lindsay Lohan, who are both, well, Megan at the beginning of her career, I think, and Lindsay was kind of almost her resurgence because she did Parent Trap, I think, with Disney, and that's probably quite a few years later. What's your relationship like with actors, and how do you approach that? And is there a question from another Megan? Is there a difference between the way you approach, I guess, actors and directing actors in the UK and in the US?
I feel like it's interesting because, you know, like it's funny. Lindsay Lohan, the reason the film got made, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, was we were at New Line Cinema, and they wanted to make it for 12 million, which I guess in today's would be about 24 million, say. But my producers who'd run, one of my producers had been the head of Universal Studios, and he wanted more money. So he took this project to Disney on a 10-day turnaround. And the reason why Disney took it there and then and greenlit it was that Lindsay Lohan had just done a film for them called Freaky Friday, and they liked it. It hadn't come out yet, but they needed a new project for her. So this was why we got greenlit. And then I just love it when you find new actors, and Megan Fox really hadn't worked, and she came in with her mother, and she was good, but the producers thought she was great because she was so good looking, and there were these two old geezers, and I think they just thought she was really good looking, and they just gave her the job, and I just sat there like a lemon. But I made friends with Megan, and she was great, Megan, and so much so that when my nephew fancied her, when he was like 19 and I was in Hollywood, I rang the agent, and Megan said she'd have lunch with me and him. So that was good. She became a bit of a megastar since. But Lindsay Lohan wanted Megan to have a haircut because she thought that she was too pretty. And when we were shooting, and Lindsay was like, no, she should have short hair. And she was trying to trash Megan. It was funny, man.
It's like what happens in the film itself.
What's that, Lewis?
It's like in the film itself. That rivalry.
It is. But I think actors can be like, some actors are absolutely lovely. I've just worked with Jonathan Pryce, and he was so nice. He was class, and I'd worked with him on my film that won Sundance, and that's probably not why he came to do this, but it didn't harm that we'd worked together before. And he was just so easy to work with. Nothing was too much trouble. He was lovely. You didn't have to direct him. You just to turn the camera on. And then we had another actor in this that was a nightmare. Horrible. The worst person I've ever worked with, to be honest with you.
Wow.
And I've worked with Lindsay, and I've worked with some difficult actors, but this one was sadistic. And it was difficult. It was really difficult. And that was a British person. So I think, you know, I've worked with some Hollywood actors that are a pain in the ass. I have to be honest, I'm like calling it now, you know, because I've been an actor, and I think some actors are wonderful people and some actors are toxic asses. and you have to work with all of them. And a friend of mine who's an actor, an old actor, and won't let me complain. And he always says to me, well, you get paid for the headache, so shut up, you know. And it's like, you don't get paid to make film and have fun. You get paid to shut up and deal with it when it isn't fun. So it was, a lot of the shoot I just been on was not fun because I had a very difficult person in the middle of it. And it was horrible, to the point where I think directors, you know, I'm thinking, I've spoke to Directors UK, whether I actually report this person and take action. It was that difficult to work with this person, because they were mean, like in a way that wasn't just difficult, like sadistic and beyond, like just horrible to work with. And they have a reputation for it. So I won't name and shame them on this thing, but you know, it's like I am seriously thinking that it, you know, in the industry, the Me Too movement and all that, I also think that directors need to stick up for themselves en masse as a group. Like, don't take it to the floor. Do, like in this instance, I just reported the time and incident and what took place every time it took place. And that's what I was told to do by Directors UK. And I do think that there's sometimes in this industry, if you come across the wrong actor that you're given by the producers, and you've got, you know, a schedule that you have to complete, and this actor's causing havoc and won't do it, and is nasty and toxic with it, that, you know, there's a movement needs to be at least expressed, you know, because it's bullying in the workplace.
It is,
and
absolutely.
this just because there's a power structure where the director's meant to be in charge, you know, that it's like, it's toxic. It can be very toxic, and I do think it needs talking about. You know, it's like, it's part of a new movement, and I think I don't know what to do with it, but if I pass it on to you guys, you know, a young generation of people coming up, it's really worth it in numbers, talking about it politically, you know, that directors can be really bullied, nasty, and you don't fight back, you don't get in the ring. But, you know, I think political action does need to be taken against that type of behavior. It's old fashioned and it has to stop.
It is, and that behavior shouldn't be rewarded by any system. So the fact that these people, you know, continue to get work is, yeah,
I know.
exactly.
And it's because, you know, it's because this old fashioned thing, which probably will still go on, where people, you know, they come into the limelight often through a BFI film when they're young or something, and so they get to make a small budget film, and then it wins awards. Then all of a sudden they're a commodity, and they're on a very small list that producers and sales agents give, and you work with one of these toxic people, and it's like working the equivalent. It is, honestly, it was like, for me, the equivalent. It wasn't harassment in so much that it wasn't about race, sexuality, but it was bullying beyond bullying. And to the point where it really was, it, if it was in another workplace, you'd have rights. So I think it's really worth talking about bullying as something in the workplace on a film set.
Definitely, and it ties into, I guess, as well, the conversations about mental health as well in film as well, in these high stress environments and concentrated spaces of time, you know, long 12-hour days, 6-day weeks, and things like that. Just high pressure environments is a pressure cooker, and how people deal with that as well. And there has to be support for that. I guess in a way it's kind of what you traditionally have HR for, but you don't have HR on a film set, when
no, you really don't.
for both on a mental health aspect, people are struggling, and on like a bullying level and interpersonal like relationships, there has to be something there to cater to that.
I think that would be amazing. Honestly, I think it really needs discussing with people. And I think the profile of it should be raised with you know, with BFI, with the government bodies, and we say no more to it, you know. And I mean, on the shoot that we just did, because it's all about money, and once packed started to be able to be the producers are the ones that give the contracts now. And it used to be that it was more unionized, but they make contracts that we were doing, like, you know, they wanted us to do 11-day fortnight, shoot it in 28 days. It's a film that really needed 42 days. We did it in 30. I had a guy called Terry Bamber, who's a first AD, and he's done a lot of the James Bond films. And he was my best weapon that he came on board, because he wasn't having it. And he got me an extra 2 days off them. And the crew refused to work for, they were going to. The problem with crews is everyone's nice and they want to work. But that's a couple of HODs. If it wasn't for Terry Bamber, we would have been doing all 6-day fortnights and 6-day weeks, 6-day weeks and 12-hour days. And it is a lot. And, you know, it's like you run on adrenaline. That's what you run on. And I'm okay at that. But what I'm not okay at, and people have different things, you know, it's like some people aren't good at adrenaline. I'm okay at adrenaline. I'm not good at being bullied. Some people are all right and can handle being bullied, but they're not good at adrenaline. And I think that these things are really important to be discussed. And human rights, it's human rights. And in the business, you know, we're so obsessive as people and addicted to making films. And you can make a short story. People that like you can work with producers that are abusive, really. And I mean, directors can be abusive, and actors certainly can be abusive as well. And I think that it should be a zero tolerance to it. Zero tolerance. And that can only happen if it becomes political, like, you know, other human rights things that are happening.
Absolutely.
Because you know, historically, a film set has been the least democratic place in the world to work in. And I think that has to stop, you know. I think it has to. And if it is still a non-democratic place, it all the more reasons that it has to have zero tolerance to bullying and
safeguarding
and safety.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you say it, Lewis.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's important, as you said, to speak about, but especially to up and coming filmmakers, because without, I think we had actress Tania Miller on a couple of weeks ago, and she said, without sounding corny, you are the future of the industry, and you have a choice, and it's your responsibility to make the change that you want to see in the industry. Because
brilliant.
And it was just really articulate that, you know, have the positive change, but also there's responsibility on every single person that walks on set every day to contribute to that. And it,
I know, it's so
just really
true.
resonated.
Lewis, it's so true, darling. And you know, we're working in an industry that has all these demigods. You know, actors are treated like often by the producers because they're commodities. So everyone sucks up to them. And you know, as a director, you can be very lonely. I'm sure as a producer, you can be very lonely. But I believe that the industry really needs, and it has to come from the top. You know, you have to really genuinely, like, you know, play hardball about rules, set rules and stick to them. And that means, like, you know, like, you just can't, you know, you have to put safety first. Yeah. Mental health safety and human rights safety, you know, and that has to come from the top. And that's easy to say, but this industry's got a long way to go, a long way. And yeah, you know, it's difficult, but I think it has to be politicized.
Definitely. We've got Another question here, or actually just after following on, I guess, a question from me from about Teenage Drama Queen. I remember, here's my personal story of first watching it. I was at primary school. I'd broken my leg, and my dad's DVD players had just come out, and my dad bought me a DVD player and two DVDs. One was Scooby Doo, and the other one was, and he's there. Oh, I saw this title and I thought of you, and it was Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, and I watched it, and I think, and I tweeted this a little while ago, and it was, I think about, it's kind of like an earworm from the musical part of the film. I think about that on probably a weekly basis. I'll have part of that tune in my head, of part of that musical number, because it is so the the David Bowie part. How did you go about? Because presumably him or his representation have to sign off when using.
I was
part of
lucky
that
because,
song.
also in America, like, being British does still carry weight. They think we're dead cool. So I knew that I wanted to use British artists, like, and I had a really lovely woman who I've stayed in touch with, who was head of music at Disney. So I got to choose those things, and I wanted Bowie, like,
Absolutely.
so they let me have it, and and make the band like look a bit British 60s, but
Yeah.
it's Disney-fied, But it was so cute, Lewis. One of the best times in my life was I was all over the Disney Channel at the time, because they were all that, like, you can't believe the marketing of Disney, that they got this thing worldwide. And all these little kids would be like the ones asking for my autograph in America. And I remember seeing Elvis Costello, who I'd worked with as a punk rocker. He did an Alex Cox film with me called Straight to Hell. And so we'd known each other from a distance. And Elvis Costello was outside this cinema that I was just watching a film in, and all these kids ran up to me, not Elvis Costello, asking for my autograph. Wow. As the director of Confessions of Tea, and he was like, "What's happened? What is this? What's this?" And it's just one of those funny moments that no matter where I went in America, these little kids would, and it was so nice that they were kids. And sometimes, like, there's this guy on the internet, something Benny Drama. I think his name's Benny Drama, and he did Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. He did Lindsay Lohan. It was like hilarious, and unlike some other people, I'm so thrilled when I hear things like that, Lewis. What you've just told me, and I keep in touch with anyone who's a fan of Drama Queen. I'm like, oh, and I write to them back always on Instagram when they write me. Do you know Tom Felton from Harry Potter was in this, and there's musicals in this. I do love a musical. Tom Felton, who played Draco in Harry Potter, was in this, and he's got 8 million followers on Instagram. And like, we were in Wales shooting. He was such a lovely man. He's lovely. We were in Wales shooting. There was all these kids in COVID lockdown waiting outside for his autograph and everything. And and it's like, he lives his life. He has to live his life with 8 million people, wherever, crowds, wherever he goes. And it's like, he handles it really well, but I chase it. I'll be your best friend now. I know you've watched Confessions.
Oh, 100%. And you said about all those kids coming up to you, and they obviously they've all grown up now, and there's actual video essays on YouTube breaking down, like, what was it, when I was doing a little bit of kind of like research, when you kind of replied to me when I asked you to do this, and you were like, yes. So I was like going on YouTube searching about things, and then of breaking down kind of like the choices of the costumes and the semantics of the costumes and the storytelling and the representation of like the women in the film as well, especially, like, I guess, like at that time, and in the eyes of, like, through Hollywood, like young Hollywood as it was at that time. And it's just so of people growing up, and it is obviously very popular, but then almost like a cult status now. That's as well, amazing. Which is amazing.
I'd love to see some links to that. I didn't know. That's fantastic. And do you know what's weird is, like, this, please everybody listen to me on this, honestly. Don't listen to the bloody press, good or bad. Try not to care, because it's like so painful when you give your soul to something in your heart and all your hard work, and you can easily, there's enough people negotiating against you in this business. Don't negotiate against yourself. Be your best advocate for yourself. Don't doubt yourself, even if you doubt yourself. Don't do it to yourself, because other people are only too happy to. And it's like time, everything has its time. So, you know, like, don't worry about anything. Because I remember at the time, like, worrying so much, and it really chiseled at me what people thought of me, you know. And I say to everyone coming up now, like, don't live on an ego, you know, come from your heart, be humble in the best sense, like, as in, know your value, know that everyone's kind of, you know, you're working hard to learn more technical stuff, but you've got something to say, else you wouldn't have given your life to say it. And bloody well, don't negotiate against yourself. Don't put yourself down. No one say sorry. No one say, yeah, you're probably right. Tell them to fuck off. You know, it's like, and you can say fuck off politely. Always be polite if you can. If not, tell them to fuck off. But try and be polite so you don't burn bridges. And just be your own advocate. Don't let anyone put you down. And don't listen to yourself putting yourself down. Don't have it. Zero policy.
And that ties in as well to that idea of, you know, selling yourself and knowing your worth and your vision and your creativity, and yeah, again, having confidence in that.
100%, Lewis. Absolutely. And you know, like, it'd be nice if you've got people on your side as well. And you'll come across mean people. You'll come across people that are toxic. And you know, you just have to smile and don't take it to them, you know. Don't take it, don't give them the power. Don't get in the ring with those people. You'll find them on film sets, you know, and you'll find them straight, you know, people get into this for different reasons, and especially when they're into it to make themselves feel powerful in an odd way. You know, I just call it toxic. And don't let it chisel at your heart and soul and your vision. Just don't. Just smile politely, have a word with your friends, have a cry on someone's shoulder that you trust if need be, but don't take it into the room with them, you know. You won't. I mean, but that's why I do think I'm really tough on it, is like, you know, get political with the BS, like,
Yeah,
you know, and believe in yourself. Really, guys, just don't negotiate against yourselves.
no, it really is great advice. There's another question here, which is about the film Vinyl. And they said, oh, and it's rather than a question, they said, it's by someone called Jake. I wonder if you could talk about how you came on board the project Vinyl. I heard you speak about it in an interview before, and it was, yeah.
So Vinyl was a script that was developed by a guy called John Williams out in Hollywood, who is the producer of Shrek. And I met him at Disney, and he's like a big Hollywood producer. And he works with a guy called Jim Cooper sometimes, a good friend of his, who's a writer who'd been to UCLA, who works a lot out there. And Jim Cooper loves British stories, and had read in the newspaper that a band in North Wales who had split up got back together, and they'd put out a single, but when they took it to the record industry said, well, your granddads were not interested, like, you got nothing interesting to say anymore. So they auditioned four local kids to mime to the record, and it got into the charts. So that was the story. But it turned out that this band, it was a true story, and this band were like my mates. We were all punk rockers together. And when I was like 13, I went out with the guitarist, the bass guitarist. So when I got given this script, I said, you know, like, not only do I like this script, I know the band, and I went out with the guitarist, and they were like, what? And I knew the story, and at that time it wasn't a script, it was an idea.
Mm.
And so I got to co-write the script, and Jim Cooper did most of the work, but I got to kind of bring the characterizations more. He did all the structural stuff on it and a really good job. But I kind of brought some I brought the kind of character to it and the texture of it. And then it was going to be, selling to a big company is what it did. But then just at the last minute, an actor fell through and this and that, and we could never get it made. So I asked if I could run with it, and I just raised money myself, and we made that for 40,000 quid in my
Wow.
hometown. I went to my hometown and I pulled all the favors I possibly could, like got the caravan park involved, and everyone gave us everything. I mean, like, if you go to your hometown, you probably get a load of freebies. And of course, after working in Hollywood, where everything has to have a license, you have to have a cop with you, you have to have a policeman and a license.
Mm.
Coming to work in Britain, back in Britain, in your hometown, where you can just pull favors and shoot in the high street, we were given like a helicopter from, I went to school with this lad whose mum ran a hotel. So we all got to stay there for £11 a night, including breakfast.
Oh my
And
God.
then, like, they had a helicopter and a Bentley. They let us use them in the film. So it's like, go to your hometown and try and pull favors from, people that, like, everyone got involved. That's what was great. Like, the whole of my town got involved. A lot of my town got involved. So I got to make that film for 40 grand. But unfortunately, and this is another cautionary tale to everybody, I got a producer, the one that gave me the money, a load of money for that natural nylon when Jude Law's company.
Mm.
So he gave me a load of money for that, but he ripped me off on this as my sales agent. I signed a contract with him. The film cost me 40 grand and I had people to pay back. And unfortunately for me, I signed a contract with someone who could get it out into the industry, but they just took all the money. I never saw a penny, not 1 cent. And it's sold to Sky. It's on DVDs in many countries. I've seen it in 3 languages. I've seen it for sale in 3 countries myself with my own eyes. And I never got a penny. And it's a shame because I wanted to pay back those people that put money into it, but it was one of those projects where I got together with everyone after AFI. So it's like a Bournemouth film school. If you guys go and make your feature together, but don't pre-sell, don't be in a hurry don't be flattered that a sales agent wants
Is
it,
interested.
Don't, because you've got to take a lot of good advice and really look at the contract, because what happened in our contract is it said, the first £50,000 goes to them for expenses. And what happened is they just lied and cheated us out the money. They did. And his name is Andras Hamori, and I say it again so that people know, I name and shame it, because we did get gaslighted on it.
Yeah.
And I just think you have to be so careful. Nowadays, you don't have to, because I wanted it to get to Netflix. I didn't know how. So I gave it to someone and they just ran with it and shut the door on us, the filmmakers. And it happens so much because they can just bury it through their accountants lying to you. So stay close to it. Get the producer not to sign it away and try and get people at Netflix yourself. Do not sign contracts to agents that can run with it. Be very, very careful about your sales agents when you make an independent film.
Definitely.
I'm not bitter about it. It's just I want to pass it on so that the good guys,
Exactly.
Like, if you can sell it to
how
the
to
BBC,
protect
it's
yourself.
safe, I think. What, Lewis?
And so how to protect yourself and your
You have to protect yourself once you make an independent film. Don't get flattered when people say, I can get it to this, that, and the other, because he did get it to this, that, and the other, but he stole the film.
Yeah.
So just be careful, guys, with it. And if you do, I mean, you just have to be careful because the accountants, it's dodgy. It's always happened in film. They bury stuff. So, but ask for gross sales, profit on gross, not net. But also try not to sell your film. Try to sell it yourself.
Mm.
Don't give it away to sell it.
Yeah. And this will be one of our probably our, actually, what time is it? Maybe our second to last question. But what kind of projects do you look for now? Or are you looking to write and both write and direct something like yourself, or are you looking what kind of what are you looking
I've
forward to
always
do at the
done both,
moment?
Lewis. I mean, the
Yeah.
truth is, and again, I just pass it on, is like, it's not like I've been doing other things. It's
Mm.
just that I sometimes have, of course, and enjoyed my life. But I've had so many projects that don't get off the ground. So don't believe everything you hear. Like,
Mm.
people come on strong and say, I've got this, here's the script, we've got this person, that. So be careful. Attach yourself to something that, even if it doesn't go, you love it enough that even if it doesn't go, you're loving it.
Mm.
And and um and I think for me, I've always been cheap as a bag of chips. I'm just thrilled to be doing what I do. So I get so much pleasure out of just shouting action and working with a group of people. And so, I'm meant to go back to do my first EastEnders block, and I'm happy to do that. Just be with a bunch of working class people. I really like it. That's just me. I'm like, came from like Rhyl in North Wales, and I find that I can now name what it is. I'm like always a punk rocker, really, and I'm kind of like it when it's not kind of. It's just I'm better with kind of working class things. So I like things that are about working class people. I like comedies. I don't love heavy drama. Um, I like that. That's what I like. Warm-hearted comedy, and I'll own it. I'm a kind of genre person who just
Mm.
likes a warm-hearted comedy. And then I'm odd. In that genre, I'm a bit odd. Like uh, I'm not like middle of the road within it.
Mm.
Maybe to my detriment, but that's who I am. And I love Wales. I just love Wales. So I don't know. I like things that are folk story. I just like things that are folk. And so something from the heart, from people. And I'm always looking for a good script. I'm meant to be working with these guys that I'm working with now, developing a TV series for a deal actor who I just worked with, a kind of warm comedy narcos set in Wales with a deal set on a caravan site. And if that happens, but Sky, the same writer's gonna present it to Sky that just did this movie, and a musical with the same producer. And I love a good musical. So there's a couple of musical numbers in this. We do Oliver and Jesus Christ Superstar, and I love it. I love it.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's so exciting. We've had another question here, just touching on a different area. This is from Judd. Hi, Sarah. My ambition in the industry is to become a first AD. I've noticed you've worked with different ones on many different projects. Could you speak about working with a different one and what kind of conversations you have with them about your process of working?
Yeah. The best AD I've ever worked with was just now Terry Bamber. He's just brilliant to work with, and because he's so loyal. And what made him brilliant to work with was that he always asks the director questions. He gives the director space, and he called me the governor. Sometimes he called me he, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I didn't mind, I quite liked it. but but it's like, so he's old school, before gender and all of that, and he's just like used to working with men, called sir. And but I loved it. It was fun. And what made him great was he gave me space. He called me the governor. He always said to me, you're my director, you hired me, because it's the producers that are paying him. And producers often think they've got the AD in their pocket. But what was brilliant about Terry is he's always said, always, it was his mantra that I work for the director, I work for the director. And he ran the floor. Terry's pride was in running the floor, and Terry would listen to me and he never let me down. So it's like we were having problems, like I wasn't in COVID getting the extras that I thought I'd be getting, and they weren't dressed in the right costumes, and they were from agencies and they weren't locals. I wanted real characters that were local people. And he sighed and hummed and hawed, but he went out of his way to try and make that happen, you know. And if I was running late on a scene or something, he wouldn't say get it in. He'd try and negotiate around his schedule, and he'd shift things in his schedule. He knew the schedule. He worked hard on the schedule, but it wasn't a closed book. The schedule was about how to get heart into the film and how to tell a story, not about shooting that schedule. And of course we had to shoot that schedule, and it was on his back to make sure. But at the same time, he told the producers straight away. He said, there's not enough days. I've been an AD for so long, I know you don't have enough days. And so he understood how much time you need for a scene. He understood what was in that scene, so that it's, you know, that if it was an eighth of a page that says the Second World War, he knew that would take 3-4 days, you know. So it made it so much easier for me. We collaborated, the DP, myself, and the first AD Terry collaborated, constantly had a dialogue where the DP might go up and say, Terry, you know, the light is really bad. Can you get it me in the afternoon? And so he'd say, yeah, I'll change the schedule. Let's get that in the afternoon. Whenever he could, he was always one up on that. And so he was always up for being part of a conversation. So that's what I look for. Someone who understands that they run the floor. So they've got to have a lot of energy and a lot of charisma. They've got to be able to get actors, their team, you know, they're responsible so that when someone knocks on the door of a trailer for an actor to come out, or knocks on makeup or costume, makeup and costume are a bit respectful, you know, and say, okay, like, we'll get them out, you know. So someone who garners respect, but, you know, there's this, you don't want respect through fear. You want respect through knowing your script and your schedule so well that people trust you, you know. And when people, with the pressures of a film set, you can retort to trying to get respect from fear and run things to frighten other people. And I just think that's not a way to run anything. Just know your scheduling. That's the best thing for an AD, to know their scheduling and talk a lot to the director if they possibly can, if there's scheduling that they don't understand. And Terry used to say, no question is too stupid. Ask all the questions you can. Yeah, I hope that answers it for you.
Definitely, I think so. And as our last question, what would be your, I guess, a parting advice for people about to graduate, step into the industry at this point? What should they do? And I guess, what's that one main thing? And they spoke a lot about knowing your worth as well. So I wondered if it'd be centered on that. But yeah, what would your advice be?
Okay, so are you talking about all departments or any department in particular?
Yeah, we could do specifically directing.
Okay, I'll try and answer all, and probably with a bias to writing, directing. But for everybody, I would say raise your profile, know your worth, and raise your profile. And raise your profile by putting in for all these government competitions, you know, like BBC. Look at the BBC website, share information with each other if there's any of these competitions going on, like, you know, and apprenticeships like at the BBC, they Channel 5, whatever, get on apprenticeships, because like in America they always say stoop to conquer. get through the door of the companies doing whatever, and then get there early, leave there late, be of good cheer and contribute to the team. And like, you know, then they hire you, they keep you. So it's getting in the door, and then like having a good attitude, and contributing and stoop to conquer, really. You know, it's like I'm still impressed with the BBC training. It's like really good. Um, so for people that are crew members, like I'd say, you know, the BBC website's a really good thing. And then for everyone else, if you're a writer or a director, enter all the competitions you can, like because like the good ones, you know, like there's some out there that are just there to make money, but the BBC, BFI, Film Cymru, if you're from Wales, Scottish film, whatever, you know, go and get it and claim it, and try and give yourself a lane to work in. Like, so you get to be known as a queer film director, you get to be known as a Welsh, you know, these things are really a pain in the ass, because it's still, I'm not saying you have to, I'm just saying that this is one way to skin the cat that works, because you give yourself an identity. And then it's like, you know, David Bowie gave himself an identity early. He was like, so you build who you are as a kind of play acting, if you like, you know, find your wheelhouse and stick to it, and enjoy the embellishment, and enjoy the fun of it, the creativeness of yourself, as I hate to use the word commodity, because I'm like, I don't mean it to take from your soul or what you've got to say to the world, but like, I do find that it helps give myself a platform if they can place me, you know. But sometimes that placement comes from your voice. I mean, I don't think Andrea Arnold set out to be, she knows she's a woman filmmaker, but she had a strong voice and she had something to say. And but she put in for BFI, she put in for all the competitions she could, and she had to stick it out. She was in her 40s before they gave her anything, you know. And once she got the money, she wasn't trying to win awards. They gave her awards because her voice was so good. So my agent, who's a heavyweight agent, always said to me, put the cart before, like, always put the horse before the cart, you know, like do the work, do good work, and it rises to the surface. But talk to each other. And I had a really good friend, Cami Griffin, who's just made her first film now, and it's done really well. It's not out yet, but she's in her 40s and she just got to make her own feature film. She was making her shorts, and she made it for Matthew Vaughn, and she had a hard time. It was her script, but she learned it. She was a camera woman at Bournemouth. She was my bestie. We met at Bournemouth, and she's just written. Then she hated the camera department because of all the bullying and harassing from the guys at that time that was going on for women in camera departments, and she started writing her own stuff. But I said to her, like, you got to do the Neil Grant beginning, middle, and an end. It doesn't have to be in that order, but you better know it. And she started going to the Binger Institute. She started taking it seriously, and she went to the Binger, and she learned the rules. And now she just made her first film that she wrote and directed. She's got CAA have just taken her on to represent her. She's now being commissioned by Fox Searchlight to rewrite a script for them, and Netflix, a series they want her on. So it's like, you know, just know it takes some time sometimes, you know, but have something to say that's yours, mean what you say. Because there was a teacher, a writing teacher at AFI, and he always used to say, you can't fake mediocrity. So don't even try. Like, don't try and fit in. Don't fake that. Like, find your voice, be in it for the long term, and then apply to everything you can, like, and keep in contact with each other, and be generous with information, share where the competitions are, you know, and just help each other along, you know, be cooperative rather than competitive, and go for the long game.
That really is amazing advice. Thank you so much. It's been such a great afternoon to speak to you, and a new Confession Teenage drama queen friend for life.
Great, man.
I hope it's
That's
not
so
too
cool.
long before our paths cross again, and I look
Yeah.
forward to seeing Save the Cinema / Dear Mr. Spielberg.
Lots of love. Look at that. I'm welling up. It's a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope to see you again soon. Thanks, Sara.
Keep in touch.
We will do. Thanks.
Good. Good luck,
Bye.
guys. Lots of love. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.